There is one question that I get asked on this channel more than any other, and that is, I love Star Wars, but I've never picked up a Star Wars book in my life. There are so many, where do I start? So let's break it down real quick. There are three kinds of Star Wars novels, really. There are novelizations of existing Star Wars movies. Those are very good. If you are really, really, really new to Star Wars and you want to get into it, I think that that is genuinely a good place to start. Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith is a personal favorite of mine. I also really like R.A. Salvatore's Attack of the Clones. They get like real legit fantasy authors to do these, and they're excellent. They're really well done. Category number 2 is what I would say expansion novels. They are considered canon, and they follow either eras that we know a little bit but not a lot about, or characters who are sort of side characters in any of the initial trilogies, but either they've gotten their own shows since, or they just wanted a book that would focus on them. So that's things like Star Wars Padawan, Star Wars Brotherhood. Ahsoka Tano gets her own novel. Leia, Princess of Alderaan, the Queen's Trilogy by E.K. Johnson would fall into that category. Those are really, really great if you love Star Wars movies and shows, and you love these characters and you just want to know more about them. Like if you're the kind of person who religiously watches Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, if you really, really liked that storyline about Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos that like you felt like you didn't have quite enough context for, there's a novel for that. And when I talk about eras that some of these books expand on, there are whole High Republic books that focus on characters like Vernestra Rowe, who we saw very, very briefly in Acolyte, and she's the green one. And these books like totally expand on eras and pieces of Star Wars in-universe history that like we don't know a whole lot about. Up until this point, it's just been vibes, and these books really expand on that. And they get authors like Mike Chen and Zoraida Cordova, and there are a couple of short stories by people like Olivia Blake, and they're really, really good. Then we get sort of category number 3, which I think is the one that people mean when they ask me questions like this. And these are the EU, or Extended Universe, Legends books. And these are books that were never really considered canon, but there was never anything that meant they weren't considered canon. The canon did not disagree with them. The canon had given us no reason to disprove the events as play out in them. And that's things like the original Thrawn trilogy, which is also written by Timothy Zahn, which follows Leia after the events of the original trilogy, running the New Republic, and also dealing with like very, very cool plot lines where she's undoing a lot of the damage that Vader did while pregnant with a pair of twins. Those twins get their own book series. That book series is the Young Jedi Knights series, which I actually do think is a really good, accessible starting point. Many of these books also fall into the category of the New Jedi Order series, which a lot of people have mixed feelings about. I personally happen to like it. So what's a good starting point for each of these categories? I think for a novelization, you could do a lot worse than Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith. And I do have a couple of videos about that on here. If you scroll back far enough, you'll find them. For the sort of expansion novels, my personal recommendation, I think, would be the Queen's Trilogy, which follows Padme's handmaidens, particularly Sabe, who's like also her best friend, with like a side nod to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and the Ahsoka novel, if those characters are people who you prefer to spend more time with. And for the Legends books, I have a lot of very nice things to say about the original Thrawn trilogy, but because Jaina Solo is among my favorite Star Wars characters ever written, I gotta hand it to Young Jedi Knights. Even though it chronologically comes after the original Thrawn trilogy, like I read it as a kid and it was a genuinely accessible starting point for me with extended universe lore. Anyway, if you have either more specific recommendations to give or if there are more specific recommendations that you want, leave either one in the comments.